After this sparging process, our metal alloy is going to have the perfect structure. I guarantee it. Sparging. S-P-A-R-G-I-N-G. Sparging. So I learned a new word today, thanks to Reddit user Nebulous Menace, who suggested this word, sparging. As you can tell from the word, the ending ing might imply that it is basically a verb, and it's the progressive form of the verb, because it says ing. It could also be said to sparge, or I sparged, or I have sparged, or I will sparge, or I sparge now, or I am in the middle of sparging. But it may sound hilarious, and the usual way that you may hear it is with the ing, sparging, because it describes a process, the sparging process. It relates to chemical engineering mostly when it comes to the engineering disciplines, or biochemical engineering. Generally, it refers to bubbling a gas through a liquid substrate. So imagine that. You've got a liquid and you force a gas through the bottom, let's say, and have it bubble up so that the gas permeates everything in that liquid and it goes out through the top. So why would you do that other than it looking funny? I mean, I guess some simple form of sparging is when you're a kid and you have a straw and you blow bubbles through your soda, or your pop, as I used to call it, as I still call it actually, because I'm from the Midwest. And yeah, so I sparged, I suppose. I made my Coke undergo a sparging process, even though it already had carbon dioxide in there. I was putting more carbon dioxide in there. Why would engineers or biochemical engineers make a liquid substrate undergo the sparging process? Well, many reasons. They might be trying to extract something from the liquid, or maybe they're trying to purify that liquid substrate. Maybe they're just trying to promote a certain chemical reaction. What are some examples? Well, one is with liquid alloys. So basically you've got, when you heat up a bunch of alloy, a bunch of different metals mixed together and they become liquid, you might have some gases stuck in there too. And you don't want those little gas bubbles to stay in there when the alloy solidifies. That would introduce imperfections and pores and porosity and possible sources of future failures and cracks and defects. So you got to get that gas out of the alloy while it's still liquid, while it's still hot, to borrow a cliche. And how do you do that? You can make the liquid alloy undergo a sparging process, bubble through an inert gas like argon or something, and the little bubbles of argon are like little Velcro pieces for other gaseous imperfections. The argon molecules, or argon atoms, I should say, they grab other gases that are stuck in the alloy mixture and pull them out, so that when the alloy does solidify, you aren't left with those bubbles. Or maybe you want to promote some kind of chemical reaction, like I had said, hydrogenation of fats and oils. That's a good example of sparging to promote some kind of chemical reaction. You might recall from biology and sensationalist news articles that, yes, saturated fats are not good for your heart. And so we talk about it a lot these days in medical science and in chemical engineering and food science. How do you create saturated fats? Well, all that means is you're totally loading up your hydrocarbons or your oils with hydrogen molecules. And you do that by, you take some liquid fats that are warm or hot or something, and you bubble some hydrogen gas through it. And of course, you add certain chemical conditions like pressures or other catalysts, and the hydrogen reacts to make saturated fats, all through sparging. So sparging is kind of a hilarious and gross sounding word, but it's interesting, and it is our engineering word of the day. Sparging. Hi, this is Bias Wong. I am your host of this podcast, and I also host the K-12 Engineering Education Podcast, which is all about linking up educators like teachers to engineers like you, working professionals listening here. If you're interested in this, head on over to k12engineering.net and check it out. Thanks.